Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right in your relationship, but your partner still wants space? Or worse, she wants to leave. You see yourself as a good partner. You've always respected and cared for her, the family, but her actions, her feelings are telling a very different story. This disconnect between the two of you can feel like a very deep and painful betrayal. It leaves you questioning your value or her character. Like, what's happened to her? But what if I told you that there is a way to get on the same page again? How you can allow that connection that you had to begin regrowing? My marriage collapsed. I found a program. I became a coach. I actually loved helping. Now, I'm writing a book and running this YouTube to share the lessons. Oh, and I did save my family. Stay with me and discover how to genuinely understand her world again and give her reasons that she might actually consider coming back into your world. At the end of the vid, I'm going to also give you a quick intro to a communication skill that you can actually use today to start bridging your differences again. So if you want more free tools as well on how to navigate these tough relationship challenges, there's going to be a link in the description with a free guide that's going to help you understand why the hell she's thinking what she's thinking. Let's start off. We're going to talk about the illusion of false certainty. What is that? Many of us get trapped on this lonely sort of position that I've just described, where it feels like, she's on a different planet. You're on this kind of lonely mountaintop though. You're convinced that you've been doing everything right. This false certainty, it's not conscious arrogance. We're not being big-headed. We're actually being very fair. And a lot of it, the crazy thing here is that friends and family will be on your side and they'll be telling you that, yeah, what the hell is she doing? You're a great guy. You've been doing everything right. So it's going to seem very, very sure that I have reasons for the way that I've been doing everything, but they have faults. They have all these faults. So it's a very different standard for you versus them. We're not aware of this. We all kind of have this bias, right? But it's not a conscious thing. It's a very subtle confirmation bias that we all have. And I've talked about confirmation bias a million times, like every video, but basically confirmation bias is this where we have different things that we start to believe. We believe this about her, we believe this about the world, and we stack more rocks and more evidence on that side. And over time, it becomes a lot heavier on that side. All human beings have this confirmation bias because it's a way that we simplify the world. We don't have to think too hard about what we believe, we just believe it. And we proceed in that way. It's our default. So it blinds us, because this is so entrenched over such a long period of time, it blinds us to the impacts that it's having on our partner, who might see things very differently and might not feel comfortable to express that. If someone knows that they have very, very different beliefs to you, they might not want to talk about, like, for example, politics. They might not want to talk to you about politics if they know that you are very far to the right or very far to the left. They might just skip that altogether. Well, imagine that they're thinking about love and relationships and the current state of your marriage is like that. They have a very different view. They're not going to be able to talk to you, and you're not going to be able to see that because of how far you've tipped to one side. So it's this false certainty, okay? It is isolating us from our partner's reality. I actually call this deceiver pride, because labeling it, giving it a name, makes it really easy for me to catch when I'm falling for it. And I still fall for it in very subtle ways all the time, and I think all of us do, right? I call it pride. So it's not always bad to be prideful. It's not always bad to be proud of yourself. But I see this kind of pride, this kind of false certainty as a skewing of reality. So an example, a client of mine, he found himself caught in this same kind of trap. He confessed that he had a fear that he was going to get left behind, or a fear that she wouldn't see the value that he offered anymore if she got in even better shape than him. She starts working out. She starts doing squats. She starts getting fit and losing weight. So worried that she's trying to set herself above him and not see his value anymore, trying to out-hot him. And he was worried that she wouldn't see that value. And he recognized that I didn't make this connection for him. He actually labeled this one himself. It's pride speaking to him. So he knew when he looked at this, when he observed his feelings there, he knew that this was a double standard. He knew that she was off doing exactly the same thing he'd been doing, trying to get fit, get hot. But he was judging her as doing it for negative reasons. He was telling himself that he was all fine and dandy, and that what he was doing it for had good reasons. She's doing it because she's got bad character. Okay? So that's what he realized here, that he was falling into that kind of false certainty about what he thought and false certainty about her intentions. So it's that pride. Now, my response to him was that defeating pride, it means knowing that it's not all or nothing, that you don't actually have to be perfect, and that you never did. And she's never going to be perfect. No one out there is, okay? And no one out there is going to be better. Like, I'm a better person, I'm superior to you, and you're below me. That's a false thing to begin with, okay? You don't have to be perfect, and you never did. You just have to work on perfecting your steps. It's not perfect, it's perfecting. Just one at a time, one day at a time, 1% better every day. That's all we're doing, okay? But he saw it. He saw that he was falling for this, right? And we can see it, that he had to confront the harsh truth that his self-perception, that his false certainty about her way of seeing things, that his judging her intentions whilst giving himself good reasons, that was actively eroding trust and making it me versus her, not me and her versus the problems, versus the world. If we recognize that pride, that this false certainty is fucking us over, how do we start to dismantle it and create space for true understanding again? To get on the same plane as her, to get on in the same planet where we can see each other, we can meet again. Let's talk about building a fertile ground for growth. What are we going to talk about here? It comes from a Tibetan saying that a person who holds himself above others, who thinks he knows, I have reasons, they have faults, he holds himself above others, is like someone who's sitting on a mountaintop. It is cold there. It is hard. And nothing will grow. On the mountaintop, nothing's going to grow up there. But if the person puts himself in a lower position, then that person is like a fertile field. So down in this valley, that's where we can grow. You can have your hero mindset. You can just focus on the things that you control instead of what other people are doing. Instead of all the pointing the finger of blame, instead, if that's what you do, if you point the finger out there, then that's where your power flows. But instead, hero mindset, we're just going to take responsibility for what we can do, what we can say, what we can think. 100% responsibility for that and forget the rest. We're going to focus on the journey. We're going to focus on just, one day at a time, one foot in front of the other. We're going to focus on just taking steps, just learning lessons, just doing the thing. We're not going to worry about the destination. And that's like being in this fertile field. Lots of things can grow. Lots of connections can form. Okay? This partner who's begging for us to come down from the high horse, just come down from the mountaintop and just listen. Just try and understand that although what she's saying may seem batshit crazy, that's because you've put yourself here. Come down to the valley. So to genuinely reconnect, and like this is not me preaching. I'm going to say this in every video. This is not me preaching. This is a mindset that helped me. If you think it's bullshit and if you don't think that you need to do any of this, then that's okay. This is just what helped me. Letting myself come down to that valley and recognizing that probably there's a lot of confirmation bias that had put me on this mountaintop, that helped me so much to understand my kids, to understand my boss, to understand my wife, to understand all these other people, to understand my friends and stop criticizing them and start actually putting myself in their shoes. Okay? We always think that we know better. On the road, this is an all-encompassing thing, this pride, this false certainty. We all fall victim to this. I would never drive like that. But if you had to speed or if you had to get it cut in front of someone, you would say, well, I'm in a hurry. I'm going to be late for work. You would give yourself reasons, but they have faults. So we're getting out of that. We're getting down to this valley where we can work on things and improve. We can have that hero mindset and that journey mindset. So that fertile field of humility, ready to learn, adapt. And another client, right? A perfect example of this kind of thing. Another client, he was facing a moment where his wife was taking financial assets that he felt he was entitled to. I mean, he'd paid for most of the stuff and she hadn't been working. And so, he felt that he was entitled to at least that much out of the divorce. He was already in a state where they were not together, that she'd moved out and was divorcing him, but he felt like she was taking a lot of stuff that he was probably entitled to. And it was unfair. He was thinking about his situation. He admitted in the Discord community, she's asking for stuff that she knows I don't have. It's kind of insulting that she's doing that. She promised, and now she's going against what we agreed to. It's tough because it feels like not only is she going after things that are going to hurt me, but it seems like the more time goes on, the worse of a place that we're in. He wasn't able to talk to her at all at this point. It was only communicating through lawyers. He felt mad. He felt angry. He was definitely blaming her. So what I advised him, I reminded him of something that had helped me to refocus. And this is something from that hero mindset, is that we cannot control other people. We can only change the environment, and then that can allow them to change. That can allow them to feel safe. We cannot control them. We can only change the environment that we're creating with our words and actions and thoughts. So he could approach her with the mindset that, I know you're a good person because I remember all those years that came before this, a decade that came before this. But in this particular situation, I get it. You were scared and you're angry and you're cold and you've got your walls up. By the way, this is not like I didn't say you should say this to her. I said that this is the mindset that I wanted him to have, right? So he could tell himself, I know you're a good person. I know that you have reasons, essentially. Maybe they don't make sense to me right now, but I'm sure you have them. But I just want to help you to understand how things feel from your side. He could extend that olive branch of understanding. Those walls and that fear would slowly start to come down. Safety would start to build. And what happened next was really cool, right? So he actually did the work. He listened, he worked on his mindsets. And then when the opportunity did come to see her, this is a week or two after I think that he had met her with lawyers and they'd actually done all the paperwork and stuff for the divorce. I'd said to him, focus on the journey, focus on your hero mindset, leave the lawyering to the lawyers and just show up as the hero. And he did that. And it created a little bit of safety. And then an opportunity came up to see her, to separate their bank accounts a few weeks later. And he managed to turn a very simple, at the end of their meeting up to the bank, a very simple, so how have you been? And by the way, just to restate how freaking cool this is, they'd been non-contact for more than 6 months. She had him blocked. She didn't want to talk to him at all, but they met. And because he created that safety at the meeting with the lawyers present, he'd completely flipped the tables by how he'd shown up. She thought it was going to be me versus him, and it was not. It was her and him versus the problem. So a lot of safety created. He just said to her at the end of this meeting at the bank, so how have you been? And that turned into an 1.5-hour coffee date where she felt safe enough to share and talk to him for the first time in months. And so this fundamental shift in thinking, in mindset, that instead of I have reasons, they have faults, it's that if I were them, if I put myself in their shoes, if I lived their life, I would 100% be thinking, feeling, doing the same. We don't have to actually know exactly how to get ourselves to there, but we just believe, we have faith in the other person. It's that fundamental shift in mindset, that faith, it creates the fertile ground. Okay? So we created the fertile ground for understanding, for safety to be created. So how do we act on it? Now, let's delve into communication skills that can help transform things, especially during the stage that we're talking about, because this stage of the journey where this normally comes up, where the big differences you're trying to resolve, I already talked about with that last client that he created some safety first, but then he gets the conversation. You get the 1.5 hours with someone. Maybe hang out, we'll put the kids to bed together and you're like, okay, so this is an opportunity. Especially during this stage, you're trying to unearth some of the differences of thinking that have been slowly killing the relationship. What communication skills can we use here? Okay, so the explore skill, because it's This is when you've lowered your false certainty. You're ready to accept that other people may see things very differently from the way that you see them, and that you had your own confirmation biases. You're ready to face your partner's confirmation bias now, and the deeply entrenched assumptions about you and life. So, the explore skill, your weapon here against confirmation bias. It's important to remind ourselves that our partners or other people are never the enemy. Confirmation bias is one of the enemies, ours and theirs. Now, the explore, this skill, it allows you to gently bring up your thoughts, to address things that confuse you, to address confusing things that she said or behaviors, new behaviors. There's something going on. This is a really balanced way to talk about those things, or just to open up the possibility of talking about those things. You can use this one to make a suggestion to somebody. A very, very light way of doing it. So it's about approaching tough conversations. It's not a way to win an argument. It's not a tactic. We don't do tactics. And this is not normally something that I would teach to people until they've really begun to work on their mindsets, because I don't want people to fool their partner into wanting to come back to them. And I don't think this will work if you come into it with that mindset. I'm sure that the way that you say it will be wrong. You'll be saying the right words with the wrong tonality. Like, you don't really believe that she has good reasons, or she must have good reasons. You don't really have that faith in her. You're still feeling a lot of false certainty, and it's never going to come across properly if that's the case. So another client, I'm going to give an example of a client who used this, right? He experienced a pretty powerful moment over a year into his journey. He'd already been with another course. He joined my course because he wasn't seeing any results. And his wife at this point had told him, I'm sorry, because he created a lot of safety. She was starting to feel a lot of cognitive dissonance because of how different he was acting, how much he'd flipped the tables, how much safety he'd created and admiration he'd started building again, an alignment that was there. But she was crying and saying sorry about past things, that she'd gone on dates with other people and things like that. And so instead of reacting defensively or trying to fix the situation with logic, this client of mine, he initially just paraphrased her. So paraphrased her like, you must be feeling sorry because you never intended to hurt. You're essentially saying you get her feeling, why she might have that feeling, and some examples. And then you kind of check with her, is that kind of it? That's paraphrasing in a nutshell. And then he used an explore to see if you could probe further. I'll tell you all about how to do that in a moment, but I just want to tell you what happened in his case. So this approach, he delivered it with really genuine intention, just like I talked about. This is important, that genuine intention rather than judging her. And this created an opening. His wife almost immediately backtracked on what she said about dating and things like that. And she said, oh, I haven't decided yet that I'm going to date or see other people. They're separated, but she's still saying she didn't want him to think that she was going to go out and date people. And she doesn't know what the future will hold, but she just said that she was really lonely. So she started to open up, the safety's there, and that she couldn't go on dates with him. So that's exposing more feelings that she has of frustration because she's lonely. She's feeling some stuff for him again, but she feels trapped. She feels that couldn't work, or it would be foolish of me to trust you again, all these kinds of things. So the explore here really dug up so much. He continued to focus after that on just understanding her and the underlying pain to find a slower, less pressured path forward, and things have continued to progress. So this approach disarmed that confirmation bias that I was talking about. It allowed her to feel understood. It led to her admitting, I do feel better after we talk now. She said this to him. This is exactly his words for what she said. She said she hasn't felt this way since the breakup. So this is the powerful combination of first shifting the mindsets, but then showing up without that false certainty and wrongful pride, and then using these kinds of communication skills to bring things up in a powerful way. That's not just for you, it's for her. And it's just the right thing to do, okay? To help people feel understood, to help people work through their feelings. Even if you guys never end up together, it's a good thing that you're doing. It's got balanced intentions behind it. So how do we do it? The actual steps for the explore. So first, it's like this, okay? A, C. What's J stand for? justification. Okay. So you might say something to her like, well, you might see this differently, but when I look at X, Y, and Z, I was kind of thinking, and then you briefly give your justification. So I was kind of thinking, when you were talking about dating, that if I was feeling really low, if I was feeling really gloomy, that I'm lonely. But if I could just have a casual kind of a date with my ex, that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, where there's no way that it's going to lead anywhere if I set it up clearly. So that's just the justification, right? You could just throw something out there that's probably more in line with what you're thinking, but it's probably nowhere near what she's thinking. But you're leading with the fact that your thinking may have an antithesis. And that's what this next one is, that antithesis. And this whole part here should not be a lecture. The point is not to try and convince them here, but it's only to kind of give you thinking and just open the conversation there. Maybe one sentence, two sentences. Okay? And then it goes into the antithesis. So we might say something like, but I realize that what I think, that whole idea could be completely impossible from your side. You may not feel the same at all. You may not, in a million years, it might be the worst idea ever, right? You could have a totally different perspective that I've never thought of. There's lots of other things that you can say here, like, I realize that I may not have thought of everything. I realize that I could have been totally mistaken. There's so many different ways that you can say this. You're just acknowledging that there could be an antithesis of your initial justification, your initial thinking. That the way she thinks could be totally different. You admit that your thinking, your hypothesis, could have many antitheses. And then simply you check. So you check with her what her thinking is, or you clarify. So if you think that you guys have already got some agreement, but you just want to clarify exactly what she's thinking, or you want to check. So you can say lots of different things here, like, what do you think? Can you tell me about your thoughts? Can you tell me what I may be missing? If it's like you've told your side of a story, you can say, tell me about your side. Can you tell me more, basically? So you're just asking for clarification. You want to either confirm this or see if there's any possibility that this is on the table, right? It's simple to do. You see, there's not many steps. It's JAC, justification, antithesis, and check or clarify. It's very simple. It's not easy because you have to come at it with that really not just being all logical, but in the emotions and trying to think what she's thinking. So you're throwing it out there, but then you really do have to have a lot of conviction in your voice when you say that you get she might think about it differently. If you said it like, you're probably thinking about this a bit differently, but I think blah, 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 blah. No, that's not the approach. I totally gather you might be thinking about this so different. And this is probably not it at all, right? But I was just thinking from my side, it maybe could be this. Like I said, I get you might be thinking about this totally differently. Could you kind of let me know what you are thinking around this one? What do you reckon? That is a lot more balanced in the way that you say it, the tone. That's how simple that explore is. And this is, as I said, the explore skill. It's just a communication skill. It's just a really simple one that you can remember and you can throw it out there. JAC, justification, antithesis, check. Okay? So super simple, not easy. Now, finally, let's kind of summarize the main insights here, what we need you to think about. And we're going to equip you for the long haul, equip you for kind of becoming that partner that she truly needs, getting on the same page again. So, someone that she balances her scales and thinks, yeah, I want to see his side again. We've learned that overcoming that pride deceiver, overcoming those lies and that false certainty really means stepping off that mountaintop of false certainty and cultivating humility, coming down into that valley, that fertile field where things can grow, where we can learn. And we also want to be able to wield skills, to use communication skills like the explore, like the paraphrase that I kind of briefly talked about as well, to deepen the understanding between you, to deepen your understanding of your partner. You're leading, so it's not about tit for tat. It's about she's already made up her mind against you. She's not motivated. So now it's up to you to deepen your understanding. But when you make her feel understood, that's powerful. When someone feels like you get them, they feel like you can help them. Okay. So it's a journey. Remember, we talked about this. It's a journey of perfecting your steps, not chasing an illusion of perfection. We're not trying to be perfect. We're just perfecting our steps 1% better each day. And so this isn't just about changing her mind. Okay. This is so important to understand. It's about fundamentally changing who you are, because, like I said, that's the most powerful thing that you can do. And that will create that environment. That's all we can do in life. If someone doesn't want to play, we create a different environment that might attract them in. Okay. So you're becoming the ally, that person who can understand her better than anybody else, that she can trust, who has faith in her. And if you become, so like, why create a, why do I need to be a new person? Why do I need to have a new identity? Why is that important? Well, because if you can do this, people who change their identity, they become someone different, then they will naturally do the things that that person does. If you become, then you will do, so you can have. And this is going to be useful to you, whether you guys end up back together or not, because this is going to be of benefit to you, benefit to any partner, and benefit to everyone around you, to be honest. Okay. So like I said, you're that person in that fertile valley. So all of the good runoff, all of the best soil comes to you, not sitting on the mountaintop, not trying to already have. I will become so that I can do, so that I can have. All right. So that's going to radiate strength, faith in her and yourself, others, faith in the goodness of her character, that everyone could do better if they were just given the chance and the environment for that. So, in closing, if you found some value here, I want you to subscribe for more weekly insights on saving your relationships. And the path may be challenging, but each step that you take is a win. Just keep walking.